Hold that machete tight, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs. It's Warui Deshou.
Are you trying to instruct everyone how to be serial killers?
How
Is that
to
how we started this off?
how to fend us off. You know, if we're coming at, excuse me, I don't know what's going on here, but let me try that again. How to fend us off. If we're coming at you in your feed and you're like, nope, I don't want any of this
We
horribleness.
just can't keep our hands off the Eizouken.
Just hold the machete tight and practice those like cool moves that you learned this episode at the feet of Mizuzaki. You studied the blade. That's what you did. Hey everybody, welcome back to Stream of Thought for Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, episode 4. Hello already to Cesar in chat. This episode was indeed a blast. I can't wait to talk about it.
I'm psyched. Like, holy, this show is just like, it's just a ray of light right now for me. Like, some days I'll come back, I'll think stuff like the girls in the show do. Like, I'll go, you know what? I've had a crap day at work, and I feel like they do, when they're all frustrated and they're like, this thing doesn't work. Like, and they're trying to hammer Excel formula in, and my workplace doesn't have it. And then I just come and watch this, and I feel a little bit seen, and I feel a lot happier as like at the end of the actual episode itself.
I'm so happy.
This afternoon was just such a joy. Like,
I'm glad.
So
I'm really glad, because that's sort of where I was last week. Like, I was feeling a little down, and yeah, that's why I was like, no more conflict, no more realism, only flights of fancy and soft, warm tones and best friends forever. None of this conflict. That's such a good shout, by the way, the King Bradley shout in chat. Like, the best way to defeat a tank with a sword since Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood probably happened.
I was thinking more Ninja Gaiden myself, to be honest.
Oh man, are you talking about the Team Ninja Xbox game?
Yes, I am.
Okay, because I'm way more familiar with the Tecmo NES series. Like, I have not played the Xbox game. I heard it's quite good though.
It is very good.
It's sort of like, was it a predecessor to Dark Souls in some ways?
Oh no, it's more of an action. It's more of a character action game, like Devil May Cry.
But
Dark
hard,
Souls
right? Like, unlike Devil May Cry, it's actually hard.
Jesus, dog! Don't start making statements about Devil May Cry. Like, we have to tread carefully here. We've got a lot to talk about, and the last thing we want is people ripping up the chat, like yelling at us about that
Devil
game.
May Cry. I bought the new one. I've never played a full, DMC game. But I bought the newest one just because it looked so batshit, and I'm excited. It was probably stupid to buy. I mean, it wasn't stupid to buy it because I like to support good games, but it was stupid for me because I just don't know when I'm gonna play it. I have like such a still playing Three Houses. Got that Three Houses DLC coming. I got Tokyo Mirage Sessions for my birthday. I'm working on Virgo versus the Zodiac, which I want to finish. I'm fucking around with the Shrouded Isle, which I think I want to do a Discord patron stream game night around the Shrouded Isle. So look for that. Hi, Grizzly. Hi, Yukinon. Hi, Jessica. And Sophie, I hope the Wi-Fi holds out. Welcome to everybody who's popping in.
Don't go for any tunnels.
Just talk to the driver. Be like, driver-san, driver-chan, no tunnels today. Don't go through.
No tunnels, please.
No tunnels. Yeah. When my kids were younger, to ease their anxiety about going through a tunnel, my wife would pretend to be the tunnel, Mr. Tunnel. We gendered the tunnel. The tunnel was a man. And Mr. Tunnel will talk to them, be like, yo, it's me, Mr. Tunnel. Like, how's it going? It's been a while since I've last seen you. Like, it's really cool that you're in here. You're the best. And like,
I'm just a necessity of engineering and logistics. Don't judge me.
I'm keeping the thousands of pounds of water pressure off of you or whatever. Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about. Well, look, we'll see you later on the VOD, Sophie. Okay, Eizouken, number 4. Hold that machete tight. Very excited to dive into this one. Now,
can we get a round of applause for the team? For pulling it off.
Oh, for the Eizouken studio, yeah.
I mean, I wanted to clap. I wanted to clap at the end of that episode. Like, I mean, I will get into this later, but I just want to say right now that I thought that this particular episode was going to end with or rather not the episode, sorry, but rather the show was going to have its whole runtime be the lead up to just them creating this shots. We wouldn't have actually seen it until the very final episode of this season.
Mm-hmm.
But they've actually done it, much earlier than I anticipated, and I'm actually happy for that for many reasons. But even then, just seeing those final 5 minutes, I was just there like, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, it was tremendous fun. I do honestly have.
Are you about to say something bad about this show?
Maybe. I have questions, right? I have perhaps negativity, but perhaps it'll be just exploration of an idea. Maybe we can figure it out together, because I'm not for sure that I believe the take that but I think it should be talked about.
Well, it's okay, folks. I know what our first poll is going to be today, which is: would you like me to continue Eizouken solo from here on out?
Right.
No, I'll hear you, Doc.
Okay.
I hear all takes.
Yeah.
Spicy though they may be.
You especially, yes, you should.
I know I have some spicy takes, so don't get me wrong.
I know. Well, we'll see how it goes. But before we get into talking about machetes, we should revisit the Twitter poll for Let's Accomplish Something, the 3rd episode of the show.
Indeed, we should. So I have these handy on my screen here. Let's go through it. So poll number 1, is Kanamori a walking vibe check? And I think that, even though we got a certain amount of answers on this poll, I think if you want to count the amount of fan art that's being created of her relative to the other characters, overall across the internet right now, I think we can collectively say that this is definitively answered. But nonetheless, 100%, a landslide, a complete domination, total victory, total annihilation, stated she be a walking vibe check.
That's science at work.
That is science. Can't argue with it. Sorry. And that's not the only 100%er we got this week, I should point out. Poll number 2, Kanamori 2020, the shortest political campaign ever, because it will just be that decisive. And I mean, we get more evidence of that in this episode, let's be fair. 100%, we're voting yes.
It'll just be her going up to the mic saying, "Ora, ora, ora."
No. What she'll do? We see that scene where she kicks the door down, at the very beginning. She'll just be doing that as she's going canvassing in neighborhoods. You don't even need to say anything. Just kick the door down, put a foot up against the door frame like she does. Just stare at them, scowling, and then that's okay, I know what I'm voting for.
Come to the PC room and vote. Get your ass in this van. I'm gonna drive you.
Incredible. And then next poll, number 3. Are you two a fan of Slipknot, as they call it?
I was I thought you were. Never mind. I was wondering what was happening on your end.
I was trying to replicate the creative process that Masaki Yuasa's team used to come up with the alternate name for Slipknot. In the same way that you get Mac Denny's or whatever in other animes, or Pizza Hat.
Slopknit.
So that's been a thing. Yeah, I'm sure that's been a thing at some point.
Yeah.
So this is actually a pretty much almost 2/3, 1/3 way. 63% say we stan, and 37% say not my thing. And hey, that's fair enough. I actually was talking to a friend on Saturday who had recently seen Slipknot. She's been a fan of them for over a decade.
Oh, wow.
Says they've still got it, despite, some of the band members, no longer being there because they're dead, arrested, fat, useless, you name it.
That's sad. I didn't know that was true. I thought they were all still...
Yeah, there's lawsuits and everything like that. Things are going down in Slipknot Town, let's put it that way.
But luckily, you sort of... I mean, unless you're, super hardcore, you'd never know, right? Because they wear masks.
Well, this is true. Everyone can take up the mantle and all that.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the band that we deserve, but the band we need, according to some people. Anyway, poll number 4. Does the show need open brackets, close brackets, more character conflict to honestly depict the anime creation process. And funnily enough, the episode itself answered this in the affirmative, I would argue. But we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. So 43% of you said yes, and 57% said no. But I think the show is, pretty conclusively stated did need a little bit more. Not a massive amount.
Well,
a little
the
bit.
question is, did it need more? It went that way, but
did
it need to? I don't know if it necessarily needed to, but...
I'm still the yes camp on that one. I'm camp yes on this. I'm a yes man. Although you probably already knew that.
I might be in the know, yeah, I don't know. I have conflicting feelings. Anyway,
that brings us to the end of our polls.
Okay.
So thank you very much to everyone who took part in that. Really appreciate you putting your 2 cents in there. If you enjoyed that, we'll of course have more polls going on as the episode progresses, as we cover more of the subject matter throughout. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Doc, meanwhile, is going to hand in his Warui Deshou badge, it seems. He's just disappeared, I've noted from the camera feed. Tut, 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 tut. So I'll regale you all, by the way, by telling you very briefly and not in any extensive detail because it will be depressing. I finished Babylon today, the little anime that couldn't. And by God, if you want to go look at my Twitter and just watch me, mentally self-destruct, witnessing what a heinous piece of shit that was, feel free to go have a nosy. Can't go wrong with that. We'll be coming up to Eizouken for a bit once Doc comes back. I don't know what he's currently doing. He may... Oh, Jesus. Yukinon, why are you asking me that question? Why would you make me choose? This is like saying, hey, you know what? What do I want to fight? Like, a bear or a shark? I don't really want to do either. I don't really want to fight either a bear or a shark, Yuki. Don't ask me to pick between Franks and Babylon. For fuck's sake. Oh, Jesus.
Oh my gosh, that's a terrible question. Why would you ask him that question?
I know, that's like the trolley problem, except the trolley's always just going to end up exploding in your own face. Oh, God. Anyway, let's move on.
Yes.
So, over to you, Doc. We're going to be talking about the episode.
Yeah, so let's talk about the creatives here. For Hold That Machete Tight, Sono Macheto o Suyoku Nigire.
Get that shitty real hard, lass.
So, not much to say this week because Fuga Yamashiro is the episode director, and they've never done anything else except for work in the production office for Lou Over the Wall. That's literally it. So,
wow,
a newbie, a young blood.
Did a very good job of this episode, I would argue, though.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like about the way this episode is produced. I mean, this is the thing about Eizouken as a show, though. Like, it is a show that can't help but look over its own shoulder by default because it is about creating anime, and it itself is an anime. Right. Which I would be remiss, by the way. I want to give a quick shout out to KVIN Kevin on Twitter, because Kevin's been helping retweet a lot of the production materials that the studio themselves and the creatives on that are actually putting out to the public freely week on week, for each episode, which I think is great. I think that this show, above all else, is one of those that people would want to take a closer look in terms of how it's made, how the sausage is created, so to speak, because that's what the show is about. There's kind of that meta element to it, You can't really, create a show like this without having people go, well, what about how you guys made this in turn, So I'm glad that they're doing that and they're being honest and open. They've got such enthusiasm about the art of creating anime. They're willing to even let you see in exhaustive detail, down to how frames of Mizuzaki going, oh, I hate this. Gets made bit by bit.
Mm-hmm. Whoops.
Also that, thanks to Yukinon for pointing that out, which I was not previously aware of. So thank you.
What did Yukinon say? Crediting individual animators that weren't credited in the EDs because TBS limits how much you can put in the credits. Well, that is good.
What does TBS stand for? Total bullshit.
Heyo. Well, it's certainly not Turner Broadcasting, which is what it is in America. That's, anyway. But yeah, it's good that the show continues to blood newbies. To give people opportunities that haven't had them before, put them in new roles, that kind of thing. So, oh wow! In chat, Spuck did animation in university, and this episode gave him flashbacks. You'll have to tell us more about that.
I'm gonna have to ask him in person when I next see him. Because I actually know Spock in real life.
Oh, cool.
I'm gonna have to ask him in person when I next see him if he's ever slept under a desk as a result.
Oh boy, right.
I mean, we've all. In fact, I know what my first poll is. I know what my first poll is, but I'll put that up there now on Twitter for you all to answer. We're going to do a bit non-linearly this week, so keep your eyes peeled.
Tokyo Broadcasting, of course. How did I not think of that? Okay, so let's run down the summary like we like to do for posterity here. So at the beginning, we have Asakusa showing a frustrated Mizusaki some old anime who, because she's very upset at not being able to get an explosion to animate properly. And Asakusa's really good about knowing all the kind of tricks of the trade, shortcuts of the industry, and she learns a lot of it by looking at older anime and analyzing how things look and looking at the details therein, which is quite nifty for the group and quite instructive, I think. And then you have Big Sis, the Yakuza herself, the intelligent Yakuza, Kanamori, kicks in the door. And she's basically just like, hey, get some shit done, okay? It's time. And you're on deadlines. You're not working hard enough. Well, now let me take that back. I don't think she's saying they're not working hard enough. I think she's actually saying you're focusing too much on the individual tiny details when you should actually be we just don't have time. Our deadlines won't allow us you to spend so much time on each tiny part of the project that you have to limit yourself in what you're doing and move on somehow, because there's just not enough hours in the day for us to allow you to hand draw every single frame to the exacting specifications that you'd want to do. And Asakusa, so I already said she knows all the shortcuts, and in this way, there's a really cool scene where so Kanamori and Mizu are kind of starting to go back and forth about I have my creative vision, and well, you don't have enough hours in the day to fulfill your creative vision. And then Asakusa brings them into the greatest world and is like, look, we could do this trick with the background and repeat the background and cut a frame here or there. And I just want to say that the camera mech that they use in this scene is incredible. I love
it's
camera
literally
mech.
A tripod.
The tripod arms are so great.
H.G. Wells he'd be impressed with that,
We have cameras at work with these same tripod shape that are just so clingy and flexible. It's really it made me laugh.
Can you also use them to terrorize the local town?
They're too small. Unfortunately, they're too small. They would be looked at once and then stomped on.
Disappointing, honestly.
Mm-hmm. It's okay, Felix. Welcome. We're still summarizing. So at that point in the show, where they have again talked about a few shortcuts they could take, the story gets bend, and Asakusa is very sad about that.
I'm sad too. Oh my god, I'll talk about this more later, but I'm just so glad that Asuka actually says, hey, story's important. And I know that there are people out there who would argue, well, it's anime, stories are it's like Olive Garden breadsticks, you get it for free, but no one really gives a shit about it. But I am very much of the same camp as her, but I'll elaborate more on that loss of story later and why I think that still was the right choice, even going against my own, perspective.
Yeah, I think in a pitch meeting that Kanamori had her priorities correct. And it's interesting, I've had a lot of discussions with people who were, how do I say this? So it's not necessarily that they thought the stories didn't matter in anime, but that it was almost like that there is no such thing as story apart from the animation. That like
I actually know who you're talking specifically.
Okay.
Because you and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
I know exactly who you're referring to.
Yeah, and like, I mean, so not to get too far off on a tangent, but like, I mean, there's a certain point where that is obviously and trivially true. Like you use the medium that you're in to convey your story. I mean, like the characters moving around and the backgrounds and all that are the way that you communicate the story. But like, it's interesting to me that this episode did separate them. They weren't like, oh, we have animation, so we have a story. They were like, we have this animation and we have to set the story aside. So it's like, you're still communicating something, right? When you do the anime, there's still an extra additive part that the writing and the story contributes to the process. It is a thing that you could take out of the process, so it is its own separate item. So I thought that was, again, noteworthy here. So let's see. I guess at this point, Kanamori introduces the idea of auto in-betweening, a software program.
Also known as tweening. I've actually, believe it or not, I've actually, like, way back when I was much younger, I actually had access to Flash, like when Flash was still the thing and not, the security flaw riddled piece of shit it is today.
Yeah, right.
I'm talking like early 2000s here. And I actually did, like, learn from the tutorials and how tweening works, like, keyframes set, like, a couple of waypoints, like, here's where this object starts, here's where it ends, and we'll move in between. Now, obviously, that was Flash back then and is nowhere near as advanced as the software that we would have these days. But I only bring it up because, like, I could see from first-hand experience, even when I was just dabbling it as a kid, like, how much easier that would make certain things for animation. But then, of course, we have, the idea of this particular episode, which is compromise, because it would make things easier.
Mm-hmm.
But look at what Mizusaki's like objections to it are. Nothing against the software itself per se.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess we can. So Grizzly's brought up a good point about anti-narrative storytelling being valid, and it's always about choosing what will best deliver your theme. That's true. It just, to me, becomes difficult to conceptualize what that looks like in a medium that's not interactive.
You and I have seen some examples of that where a story can be very limited and then get great. I mean, come on, we did a 3-hour on Shelter.
Totally, but I feel like there's a narrative there, right? Am I
There
wrong
is,
about that?
very, the thing is, narrative will always exist as a bare minimum anyway, just by merit of, like, animation, like, happening. Like, I mean, if you, like, even though they stripped out the story from the film that we see at the end of this episode, there's still a story there, just that you can infer from what's seen. Like, there's a girl, there's a tank, they're fighting each other, they must be enemies, they're in the desert, she gets airdrops in, blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, there's always going to be a minimum. There will be a bone, it's just more than it's going to be boneless, if you will. If you strip away all the...
Right, and this was the dispute, right? Like about narrative being something that has to exist in anime, or that is even a priority for storytelling and animation. And maybe I just don't have enough of a grasp of the technical language of storytelling. But I would tend to agree with you that even if you showed me a piece of animation without context, like without backstory, without, like, character development, it was just a fight scene like this or something like that, or a conversation, maybe this is just my flawed brain, but I'd be like, oh, the narrative is these two people talked. Or here was the fight, you know what I mean? F for the tank crew, the best characters, yes.
Rest in peace, Metal Slug protagonists.
Indeed. There's a really good conversation in chat about compromise and the different reactions to it. I feel like this will be a talking point later.
It will.
If not, I'm going to scribble it down here. Their reactions to compromise, because these are interesting. So yes, the auto in betweening that you have done before in Flash. Kanamori is very much like, we have to do this to finish. People won't be able to tell. And Mizusaki's like, well, I can tell, right? And there will be people that are able to tell, and it's just not what I want to do. This is definitely the most heated conflict, this moment right here, that these two have had. And Kanamori is just basically like, listen, I can't deal with this right now. I'm going to go talk to the art club and see if they can help us with the background so that Asakusa can begin helping Mizu, because you guys have to just work together and get this. If we want to do this, if we're not going to use the in-betweening software. So she leaves to go ask, comes back because they refused, and she just begins punching holes in the doga paper.
I'm surprised she didn't put a hole in the desk doing that. I mean, credit gets this anime. Like, this is subtle, but I like it. You can tell from how, like, she's punctuating, like, all that she's saying with that. That is really her frustration showing through, even though she herself is pretty ice cold. Like, she's stern, but she never starts yelling. And indeed, to the credit of all the characters, it never gets personal for them, even though it could so easily do so. I mean, I speculated on that in the previous cast we did, where I said, you only look at the differences in social class between Asakusa and Mizusaki, and you can see how, in a different version of this show, and again, I'll save that discussion for later, but you can see how a different version of the show, they would go to town on each other by calling each other out on those points, like, oh, you're a snooty rich girl. Oh, you wouldn't know shit because you're poor, and all that.
Yeah.
But to this show's credit, it acknowledges those differences, but it doesn't take them so far as to become like, well, even a thing that's personally like conflicting between them. But they're still relevant, which I like. I like a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of knows the story it wants to tell. It knows what it's about, and I think getting into class conflict and class consciousness explicitly would probably be like outside the scope of what the show wants to do.
Indeed, you've hit like kind of like the surrounding area of something I will talk later, which is what do we like? How do we define like character drama? Like what level is appropriate for the material you're working with, and so on and so forth. But I'm gonna zip my mouth and then just wait to get like because I got so much to talk about because I love this show.
I know there's so much here. And so yeah, the hole punch was pretty great. It really did sound like, as you said, the desk was going to go through the floor. And when Asakusa is Mizusaki actually, who had, I guess, time to think about, a few minutes to kind of think about the conflict that just happened. And when she sees Kanamori working for the group and saying, like, getting her hands dirty, quote unquote, basically, like really getting into the process. She's like, you know what? Okay, I'll do this. I can see that you're suffering. I can see the points that you've made. I have to be realistic. So we'll do the auto in betweening as long as I can still work on keyframes. And it turns out Kanamori already set up the in-betweening program and already knows how it works. Like, she's talking about getting her hands dirty. Like, she's been in it for a while. Like, she's already sort of sussed out how to use this complicated program, right? And then at that point, when you see how it works, you see the girl flying toward the screen and you see this example. Then Kanamori says, well, get back to work on backgrounds, Asakusa. You now need to go do that. And then we get a montage of some really chill music and the raft.
I had to pause. I had to pause because I was laughing so much I could not actually pay attention. I could not pay attention to what's going on. And that was just... I'm gonna say, because the thing is, like, beyond that being a funny moment on its own, like, I feel again this show, as Spock has just said, is meta enough that you can take something away from that and learn something from it. But zip, shut up. I probably should just leave my mic on mute. I'll just take it, throw it out the window.
So we get this really nice montage, and what is this word I wrote? Oh, yeah, okay. So then we see at the end of the montage, which was pretty short actually, Kanamori scanning her card to purchase some milk at the quick stop, the conveni, before going back into the PC room at school to recover the sleeping Asakusa at 4 a.m. She fell asleep.
I've had that face many times. Not admittedly because I was animating until the early hours. I was instead drinking till the early hours. There's a subtle difference, I promise. And
this is a great line when Kanamori says, "So did you finish?" And she said, "It's not so much about finishing as much as it is about like the passion and drive and dreams crashing into the like sharp rocks of compromise and resignation."
Yeah.
And
very poetic.
Yeah, very much so. And well, it sure is morning, as she says, "So desne." I think that's how you say, like, yes, it is. And like, also Mizusaki is finishing up her stuff, right? She's on the way. So she rushes in, and we see the animation being printed off, and then we get to the presentation.
Oh man, this whole fucking scene. I need to say something that first, which is the like, I don't know. I'm gonna save like my discussion for this whole thing later, but there's a guy in the middle of the crowd who are being forced back by riot police, and he's got a fucking rocket launcher. And I have no idea why. It is completely and utterly uncommented on. And that's great. That's great. I'm like, what the... Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Was he part of the security club?
No, he was one of the crowd members. Oh. He just had a fucking rocket launcher. And there's no comment on it. And I'm just like... There's just some... Like, this is the thing about the show as well. Like, a lot of its humor feels very, very anarchic. And I love that. Because indeed, if you think about what they're doing, like this very grassroots kind of indie production, even if you will.
Punk rock.
It does. That's exactly it. It feels very punk rock in a way.
Yeah.
Not, because they've got like, well, I don't, for example, want to imagine Kanamori with like a mohawk or anything like that, looking like Vivian out of the Young Ones. Although she just actually acts like Vivian out of the Young Ones now that I think about it. That's something that Spock will get, by the way, because he and I are about as old as each other. Right. And we're also British, so that works. But like, holy shit, like that's the kind of vibe I get from all this stuff, and that's great. It fits perfectly. So in this room, like, it really, you just get thrown into the presentation hall or whatever. And like, there's a table, got 4 student council members, and behind them is the security club holding back all these like rioting students. And I don't know if the reason they're rioting is because of the like carbohydrates revolution that is attempting to happen on stage, where these guys, which I'm sure are a reference to somebody, like they have to be, like, their faces look like not high school student faces, but like, yes, rice and noodles they want to put on school menu, but someone just is like, this is a violation of nature. Rice and noodles ain't what God intended. Not a socially recognized combo. Hello, Lux. Welcome. And anyway, they get all the shit thrown at them, and they get hauled off the stage. And so we should talk about the student council itself. There's a lot of people saying that there was a Kill la Kill vibe. And I definitely got that from the 2 badass ladies. But what I found really funny is, like,
the two guys on like the opposite ends, like they're basically just cardboard cutouts. Like they don't do anything. One of them has this like contented face the whole time, and he's just doing nothing. The other one is actually has his eyes open and is watching, but like he says absolutely nothing. And so yeah, so they're there to judge whether or not these clubs deserve a budget. Would you want to say something? Yeah.
I have one more thing to add, by the way. This is not something that I've actually spied myself. I'm going to willfully admit my ignorance here, but it is worth noting because other people have spied it on Twitter, and I think they'd be remiss of us not to point it out, even though it's not something we ourselves have seen. Like, Eizouken, one of the other cool things it's doing is it's also being very multi-ethnic as well. Like, we know that, you saw that in the first
I was going to bring this up.
Mm-hmm. But, well, in that case, I will pass it over to you.
No. It's just going to... But this is fine. Be right back starting a carb club.
Well, that was one of the polls I just put.
Amazing.
The poll I put was if you were the budget media projects. I mean, Nestle are on that shit.
Yes. So, by the way, I think so. Am I correct in? So there's like 4 student council members, and the 2 on the inside of the table are ladies, and the 2 on the outside are guys. I'm right about that, right?
No, I think because there's the red-haired one who is in the middle. She's in the middle.
Well, there's 4. There's the red-haired lady, the black lady, and then 2 guys sitting on their outsides.
I think so. I think
okay.
You're right.
I'm sure because I think there's some confusion about me thinking one of the ladies is a guy, and I'm not. No, they're definitely those 2 that actually talk are badass awesome ladies, but there's 2 other guys, and I think this just speaks to my point that they don't do shit. They're like cardboard cutouts who just sit there.
I mean they have a very limited vocabulary, dog. You can't blame them for all they can ever say is yeah.
They don't have any power. But yeah, the student council, the 2 that actually, the shark teeth girls on the outside. Oh, is that? I'm sorry, I just misgendered the shark teeth girl, because she didn't say anything. That's my bad. I could have sworn it's just short hair, but anyway, the redhead and the black girl, who are both awesome, both are very much like, hey, keep your hands off the student council. Don't fuck with us, right? Like we will end you.
But then they decided to take on Kanamori, and like taking on Kanamori is like deciding that you're going to eat a bowl of concrete for breakfast. You can try. No one's stopping you from giving that a go. Mm-hmm. But your odds of success are, how do I put this politely? It's somewhere between Jack and shit left out.
Yeah. Thank you, Ash. No, but yeah, they enter this battle of wits with her, right? Where they say,
more fool them.
Well, tell me what you've been getting up to, because we've heard all these crazy rumors. And Kanamori is just
don't feel I need to answer that.
Why is it a problem? Why isn't it the school's problem? Do you guys want a scandal on your hands?
I mean, we came here to get a budget approved. Why do you think we have any, thing to afford a shit to give?
Exactly. And they sort of get to this point, almost a stalemate, where, like, the music drops out, and Kanamori has mostly been arguing with the redhead, and then the other girl is basically just like, well, you thought you could come in here with your bluff, huh? And fuck around with us, but it ain't working. And then we have Asakusa's speech, which is like the most incredible cartoon supervillain speech ever. Like,
I really want to imagine if we get English speaking the Southern all like really, really like deep state accent or something like that. It comes across as very country to me.
It does. Yes, it does. Like, yeah, Nimrod and like all these sort of, again, insults like that you would expect, I don't know, like Megatron or Starscream to use, or the Shredder, not like a high school girl. But she's watched a lot of cartoons. Clearly, she's
well, you're right. That's probably where she would have drawn most of her language from. I mean, we assimilate like our vocabulary and sayings just from things like that. I mean, some of the quips I've made over my time doing this podcast are stuff that I've like kind of blended together, or even like, well, to tell you the truth, stolen wholesale from various things. So
me too.
Yeah. It's not unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, and you see from the way she's drawn very blobbily, like that she's clearly like very anxious and scared. You know, she's crying because she's talking about it in this speech, like, you guys are arguing about sort of legalities and stuff, but like, we busted our ass to make this anime. Why don't you care about our, like, you guys should just watch the anime and then decide if you'll give us money. Like,
and everyone's like, oh, what a novel idea. Yeah. Let's do that.
But like I said, she's like, you know, shedding tears, and she's like, we're not in this club building because we want to be. This shitty build, like, it's because we actually give a shit about anime and we want to make it. And that sort of silences everybody, and they allow them to put the tape on. And then you see the video.
Oh man.
Which is super rad. And we have this great moment, well, several moments, when the greatest world, again, like, impinges on reality. Like when the tank comes out of the TV screen, and like the kid sees the garbage can, but he's like, is that a bullet casing? And the wind sort of blows like in a 4D movie theater. And it's really great. And I felt that the animation looked sort of homemade enough, right? To be credible. It wasn't like, it didn't look janky, but it also didn't look like just totally polished, finished product, which I appreciated. And so it blows everybody away. Like, the students are like going nuts for it, you know, suge, like, sugoi, this is awesome. And the student council just kind of like talks to each other a little bit, like, you know, they did this with no money whatsoever. What do you think they could do on a real budget? And it's funny that the artists themselves are all like talking to each other, encouraging each other, but still they're very much like, oh, we noticed all these mistakes, right? They're focusing on only the little tiny flaws.
Yeah.
As you get, I guess you can't help but doing when you've created something. And but
it's what I keep saying to myself every time after we go off air.
Oh man, you and me both, brother. But no, they were like, hey, this is our first step to like something great. We're on our way. Like, this was awesome. You know, we could get better. You know, can we get a PC in the room? And I'll take it under advisement. Mizusaki is a genius. She's super great. And that won't be a negative point about the show at all. I refuse to have it be. She's just a fucking animation prodigy, and that's all we're gonna say about it. And then the episode basically ends as they get the stamp of approval on their budget form, and that's that.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Oh man.
Oh wait, who made the title card at the end?
I can find out actually, because Yukinon, thanks to you, Yuki, has actually posted this in our Discord. It comes from let's see.
I know, isn't that great that like the coolest character animation in the show is of the character animator when she's twirling the machete? It's so cool.
I'm just gonna find it now. Actually, I'm just skipping to the end of the episode because I was actually watching it again while we were talking. Because I'm a cheat and a con man, that's why.
You are.
What are you gonna do about it? What are you gonna do about it? Damn it!
I'm gonna buy a ticket.
It's by Masakazu Ishiguro, who, according to Yukinon, shouts to Yuki for providing this information, was also a mangaka and did one particular work that was adapted into a show known as Soridemo Machi wa... Oh god, I'm so bad at this. Mawateru. And Yet the Town Moves.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know of this.
I'll put one in the tip jar for that because I completely butchered the pronunciation of it.
Is that like YKK? Is that... can you say the name of the Japanese show?
Oh god, you asked me to do it again? Oh
yes.
Man.
Oh, you know what? I'll just Google. Let's see.
Please don't make me do it again. Like, I mean, we all know I'm going to get arrested on the first day I arrive in Japan if I go there for any reason, business or pleasure. And it'll just be for crimes against the language.
No, it's not YKK. All right, I'm thinking of a different thing. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay. But that's it. That's our episode, and it was great. And there's a lot to talk about.
There is indeed. So I'm going to go right in with the big talking point first. Let's talk about Eizouken as education, because like when you try to like educate someone, like say you're a teacher, for example, or say you're creating a documentary, if you will, which this arguably could be described as, even though it is pure fiction. You obviously want to get your audience, your students, if you will, on board. But how do you do that? How do you get them motivated to learn more? Like I've had many teachers over my lifespan, some of which were great, some of which were, oh man, probably working in McDonald's right now.
They're one out of 5.
I wouldn't be so generous as even to say that. I've known some who have actually gone to prison, and some who are raging alcoholics. Welcome to the British education system.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's no better here.
No, unfortunately not. But what I really appreciate about Eizouken is this, right? Like, there are many moments in this episode, and indeed we've seen them in previous ones, where the girls will elaborate on an artistic technique, such as the one, for example, where they have the tripod being viewed from underneath, so you're looking up at it, and then you've got the white background, it's a distance. So what do we do? We zoom in and we fill it in with blue sky, so that way we don't have to animate quite as much. And then we see that happen. And then, of course, we have, the keyframing scene there. But what I really like about this show is that it's not constantly doing that. Sure, it will take time to, elaborate on a technique and give you the basics of how it works. And certainly it will not say, in exhaustive detail, oh, here's the manual on how to do keyframing on this very specific program, like you're watching a YouTube instructional video. This show is still primarily a piece of entertainment, and it's certainly fulfilling that wonderfully. But the other thing that I think is really neat is that there are so many other scenes in this show where there are very clearly creative and artistic choices being made to enhance the moment or get its purpose across more strongly that it then doesn't tell you about after the fact or while it's in progress. There's a scene in particular, which is when Kanamori says, I'm going to go to the art club for the backgrounds, and we get this maybe half a second cut to Asakusa, and she's just like, huh? Like, she's completely blown, like, no, like, in shock. Absolutely stunned, and it cuts back again, and that's funny in its own right, but it's funnier because of the way it's cut. You just get that little insert, and you only get a brief moment to catch it. It makes it all the more hilarious, but you are not, of course, told that that's how it works by the show itself. It is giving you some information, but what it's doing, I think, that makes it really good as an education more than anything else, is that it's making you aware of what's going on and challenging you to figure things out on your own as well, by simply opening that kind of inner eye, if you will, to the fact that these things exist, these techniques, they're being used to get certain effects and, ideas across. It doesn't then tell you everything and challenges you to try and look at the rest of the show in a different way. Because there's so much other stuff there that's being done that's kind of meta. And I think that's really, really good of the show to do that. Like, it's not going to give you everything like it spoon feeds you like so much education often is, but rather it will give you a taster of what you can derive from it. Even if it's just purely technical stuff like how keyframing works, or, to gain more meaning out of like the impacts of explosions and smoke and fire and such. And it'll say, hey, you know what? You've got this already. Pay some more attention to everything else and see what else you can pick up. We'll get you started. We'll give you the keys, but you've got to walk through the door. That, to me, is probably one of this show's best attributes right now. I wouldn't call it, like, as I say, a technical manual. You won't learn how to animate from watching this show. But what you will learn is, firstly, how to interpret media, like, with by knowing some of the techniques there, and also having a more keen interest in learning more for yourself, which I think is really, really quite the accomplishment. So good shit to Eizouken for doing that.
So are you saying this is just a sports anime for animators?
Oh, fuck me.
Because, like, that's sort of a defining trait of sports anime. I'm just
going to put this on hide my face. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
No, this is not a bad thing.
I'm kidding.
Sports anime is great. But, like, yeah, they all are very much, like, come along with us as, this character or this team learn about how to play the sport and learn maybe about some history, but about like the different techniques. Like, what does this position do? if you play that position, like, what do you need to be good at? How are these techniques? Like, this shot, this serve, standing in this position, has it, and like all kinds of, but like you said, it's not, it doesn't go all in to become like,
Dry.
Now let's watch a corporate training video about how you can learn to shoot a 3-point shot.
Hi, I'm Mr. Annie Mater, and I'm here today to tell you how to draw.
Yeah.
Follow this simple process. No, it doesn't do that.
Yeah, it's way more immersive.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I unfortunately learned way too late in my educational career, so to speak, like when I was going through university, which is that the best kind of learning is not one where you are simply given everything on a piece of paper and told to memorize it, but rather the best kind of learning is one where it will give you, like, here's a tantalizing taste of material, but you should go out and find things out for yourself. Go and explore, like see what else you can read from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really, really good on this show's part. I think that's an astonishing thing that it does, that it won't show all of its hand.
Mm-hmm.
It'll instead challenge you to just go back and maybe, this is one of the shows I think that actually is probably one of the greatest to be rewatched, because you'll learn things as you go along, but you won't learn all of it. But then you'll rewatch and you'll notice more things that you didn't see previously.
Yeah.
Just, love it.
Especially if you come to it like with different levels of experience, like like Spuck or Yukinon, who are artists and animators, and Felix watching it, like they're probably viewing it with these different eyes than we are. And if we like got some experience in the field or tried a project and then came back to it, we look at it in this different way. Like there was more we could get from it, which is really neat. It's really neat. So I guess now we can talk about compromise.
Oh boy, compromise! I love a bit of that.
The dreaded C word for creatives.
I have been there many times. Although I've also been quite fond of yell out 4 letters long, and it's again from the Queen's language. I've yelled it many a time when editing the podcast. Let's put it that way. I mean, if I may be so honest, folks, like, if there's one thing that I really, really also appreciate about Eizouken is that it really captures sorry to steal your thunder there, Doc, I'll keep this brief.
No.
But I really appreciate how it captures like a creative's mindset throughout various things, which is, to get like self-indulgent here, I've done a couple of audio essays for Warui Deshou, like, where I've done my own thing, I've done scripts and all that, and I've come up with all sorts of crazy stuff, like I'll do some karaoke for a joke here, or I'll do this like complicated skit with a load of audio in it, or I'll do this and this and this and this. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. And a substantial chunk of that never actually makes it to the actual recording because it's just not practical for me to do, or I don't feel it would work in the end. I'd rather keep it to a short length. All sorts of reasons. But Eizouken again acknowledges the reality without actually being too bitter about, being like down, like, or dour about it. Yeah. That you have an idea in your head of where something will end up when you're creating it. Like if you're drawing, for example, and you'll have the reality and they will diverge, but that's fine. Mm-hmm. One of the most subtle divergences that I've really liked in the final film, do you remember how Asakusa said that she wanted to have the logo animate for the Eizouken? That didn't happen in the film.
Just in the corner.
It's very subtle, but even that was a compromise.
It was, and in some sense, like, I don't know, artists back me up here or contradict me. In some sense, like, I think creating anything, it's almost like you're trying to like compromise with reality, like the entire time, because like even as you're making it, I don't know, it's like trying to articulate the vision that you have in your head is like a struggle. You're like pushing back on the world as you try to give form to something that doesn't have any kind of physical manifestation yet. And so there's that part of it that it's always kind of going on, but like, what this episode speaks to is the compromise that you, as an anime person, or just someone working in animation, right? That is for profit, right? That is the sort of fusion of art and product to make money. Like you're always going to be on the schedule of someone else, and you're always going to have to answer to the production committee. You're always going to have some kind of deadline.
Yeah.
And like, you're somehow going to in some way have to compromise, going to have to put something out there that is not exactly to your vision, or maybe radically different from your vision.
Indeed. I can think of 2 anime, one of which you and I have covered, that fit this description perfectly. Because it does happen. That's the truth of it. And indeed, this is actually also why the ending of this episode is great, and we have the resistance from the student council, because that's a new enemy they have to fight, or that it becomes like something that you have to overcome, an obstacle, if you will, in the creative process, which is bureaucracy. Everyone loves that.
You're right.
But it's true. I mean, it's true. Like, that's also why Asuku's like speech is so important, which for reasons I'll also get into in a minute. Because Kanamori, like, you know, we love her. You know, she's unstoppable. Do not fuck with the Kanamori. But like, she's fighting bureaucracy here, and that's getting nowhere. They would have been a quagmire. But the shows I was going to reference, the first of which is one that I've not seen, but I know full well definitely was compromised, and that would be Stars Align.
Yeah, sure.
That was absolutely compromised.
Totally.
Like, well, in the worst way possible, I would argue. Short of just flat out being cancelled before like it even finished its first core. But the other would be one that you and I have covered, Doc, and this is something you and I have discussed, which is Sarazumai.
Oh, right.
Because I mean, I said before, I could tell that show was deeply limited by its runtime. Ikahara needed more time to get his ideas over in that show.
I thought you were going to talk about the whole premise being a sort of deft dodge of the hand of bureaucracy. Well, you know, because he basically just didn't tell them about the whole like going inside like butts to retrieve the magic ball.
Well, you know, I mean that's summed up many like, you know, I was like finding a fucking answer out of nowhere. I'm a data analyst by trade, by the way, folks. So that's also a bit more of my life, you know. But yeah, no, I mean, that show, like, it was 11 episodes long, wasn't it? And there was so much stuff that was covered in that show that I felt could have been a show on its own, but it didn't get as much screen time as I'd liked. It's again like that eternal conundrum I've said. What did I hate about this? Did I hate what was actually there, or that there wasn't enough of it? And in my case, that was the latter. But I mean, for all that I love Ikahara, no one, unfortunately, these days, because bureaucracy be shit and all that, and capitalism be shit, is going to finance him to do another 2-course run. I doubt it. Which sucks. But that's the truth of it, you know. Compromise is often a case of bureaucracy and money. And just to go back to something that Cesar said, now that we can see their true potential of the budget, that in itself can also be a caveat. Because, again, you now have the ability to do more. But should you be doing all that you in theory could do with that money? How far do you want to go? How much do you want to spend on giving more? There are still pitfalls. And this is again another really good thing about this show is that, like, we've already had the hurdles they've had to get over, like time, you know, and just ambition versus reality.
Well, because
now it's expanding more.
Exactly. And they still have this other deadline, right? That they saw in the first episode, like the film festival. That they have been encouraged to submit to, and they wanted to try to get that. And with an increase in budget comes an increase in expectation. With an increase in project scope, you just are increasing potential risks and pitfalls. You know, as you try to do more and more problems will arise. I mean, you see how they struggled to get out the door. What exactly money can't buy time, but you see how they struggled to get out the door what they did, and what they're gonna try to do is a full-fledged production now with, you know, voices and more fully animated and more characters potentially and all kinds of things. So like the compromise, I think, will still be a thing in the show, and but it never goes away. But I think the more projects you work on, I guess you kind of find, certainly you get better with your workflow, right? You're able to be more productive and do more but you're still making art. So like you're still, I feel like they will never get to this point probably where they're just like, oh, I can do everything in the deadline. It's not a problem. Like, because you're still like creating these things with love and passion.
Yeah, that would make for an interesting show of its own. Tension or pressure on them, and therefore that'd be boring, to be honest. I'm sure I'm sure like Eizouken could like still be funny in doing that, but we wouldn't exactly feel like any sense of reality, because I think again like what this show is doing as well, which I think is really adding to it, is also being pretty honest. I mean, seeing Asukusa like come out under that desk with the bedhead, like looking like she's half dead, like that's funny. Don't get me wrong, that is funny to see, but it speaks to the truth. It's long nights and hard graft, and I appreciate that it does that. It doesn't pussyfoot away from it.
Yeah,
but I've
got more on this for later.
I know. So have I.
Good. I'm glad we'll circle back to that. But, and it's interesting too. I think Zoe brought this up earlier in chat, to look at how the different characters, how they react to compromise, right? Where Asakusa is like, she is, she's not okay with it. Like, she doesn't love it, but as a means to an end, I think she's more embracing of it. Because she wants Kanamori and Asakusa to get along. They're the two that are more uncompromising. And she's like, we need to, wants to hold everybody together and wants everybody to be happy as they work on what they love to do. And wants everybody to have the joy that she has in like working on anime. And so, yeah, she's willing to bring in all these like corner cutting, like time saving measures. And like I said, very much willing to embrace that. Mizu hates it. Hates it. And, again, you could scratch the surface a little bit here. And you could probably, if you wanted to, do the whole, like, well, the reason she's not used to compromise because she never had to compromise before.
Well, what is she doing by doing this in the first place? She doesn't want to be told what to do.
Yeah.
Because that whole reason she started this whole thing to begin with was by resisting the MIBs, which, by the way, kudos to the show, we get reminded of that.
Yes.
In a moment where, objectively speaking, they can't have seen that footage because that was like our camera perspective from the first episode. But you know how the show is saying, hey, sometimes it's appropriate to reuse animation. Well, we're going to practice what we preach.
Exactly.
It's great.
Yep. I didn't think about that like, the whole reason she's in this club, her parents didn't want her to do it and she's rebelling. I was more thinking in a general sense of like, rich girl don't get told no. They have the means to do whatever, or, their family. And she's I don't want to mischaracterize her as a character because we haven't seen any of that, but that could be the reason why that she's more uncompromising when it comes to her artistic vision. And Kanamori is very much like, yo, you guys need to compromise all the time, everything. Yeah. If you don't stay on this schedule, you are fucked. We're all fucked.
Do you see that we've got a hyperbolic time chamber in here? Because I sure don't.
Oh boy. Which is 48 hours in a day, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's impressive. Very impressive if you were on another planet, but totally. Not.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's really fascinating to see how it all played out. But maybe to lead into something that you want to say, I think I'm glad that we have these three the personalities really coming into their own. They all are distinct, and two of them in particular clash at certain points, but you don't have any of this like, well, we're not friends anymore, or like, well, fuck you, like lightning eyes to each other.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it's just kind of part of the creative process. It's not like this. It doesn't like get personal and doesn't get nasty. And I really like that. Of course, I mean, if this was a totally different show run by a different person, you could get into some really shitty stereotypes about women in the workplace or women relationships and cattiness and all this ridiculousness like that is just not here. And that goes back to, I think, that the show wanting to be sort of, or at least originally was envisioned to be kind of gender neutral. Remember we talked about like the first episode director, like the walking and everything was not drawn in an overtly feminine way. And so yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that they like stayed away from that. And that they are not falling out, like that their relationship is more mature and deeper than something like that.
Well, you've very nicely set me up there, Doc. So I'll just tee off from where you've left me. Thank you very much. So I said previously, like, what do I reckon I could see happening next? I said, for example, hey, there is a class thing here. That's apparent, but it's not something the show dwells on. But it's something you could expand into if you were doing this a certain way. And indeed, while you did say we want to avoid the pitfalls of cattiness and female stereotypes, I think that there is still like a potential, which I'm not saying it would be better than what we get, but I'm saying you could make a workable product out of it, of a show which is about the creative process, which is much more like true to life, quote unquote. Like, it's not as quite as zany or anything like that. It's a bit more gritty, a bit more about like the emotional strain. I mean,
War never changes.
Yes, that kind of thing. I mean, I have a book somewhere on my shelf over there called Aries by Stephen Baxter, who I've mentioned a couple of times. It's like one of my favorite sci-fis. And it's actually an alternate history telling of a planned Mars mission made in the 1980s because the timeline diverged due to Kennedy not being assassinated. And the whole book is about the extensive process of building the necessary shuttlecraft to get there and getting everyone trained up and all sorts of stuff. And it is very dour.
Thrilling.
It's very stressful for the characters involved. Particularly when they do like a test launch of a shuttlecraft that would go there and explodes.
Oh, wow.
With people on board. Yeah,
that happens.
Shit. Yeah, so there is potential for a story that works as a more like gritty and grounded kind of thing. But again, Eizouken, because the people making this and the person who wrote it originally as a manga have got their, like the mixture just right. I think this is meant to be, if you would call it that, a roast. And I'm not talking about like, the chicken or the turkey. I'm talking about the comedy.
Okay.
Because, I mean, have you ever seen, and this is going to sound crazy, but have you ever seen Galaxy Quest, Dog?
I have not. I know of it, but I've not seen it. Why would I go see a spoof of a thing that I've never seen before? I've never been a Star Trek person. So why would I see Galaxy Quest? Because I knew it was a spoof of Star Trek.
I believe you. You don't need to watch any Star Trek ones. Never mind. All right. So here's the thing, right? Galaxy Quest
starring the Tim Allen movie, correct?
Yes, Mr. Tim Allen movie. Yeah.
Not a fan of his. Anyway, please continue.
Right. Okay. Before I just disintegrate and turn to a puddle of jelly on my floor. The thing about Galaxy Quest and what roasts are in terms of like comedy is that they are comedy that will mock or take the mick out of, or even just have a little in joke at the expense of like something, but also out of a deep respect for it. So the thing about Galaxy Quest is, it is a roast of Star Trek, but it has immense affection for it as well. And I think that you could describe Eizouken as something like that, where, it is funny. It's funny to see like Asuka come out from under the bed, with her hair like all messed up and she's like barely slept, if at all. Like, even though in reality that is like, oh my God, why is this happening? That's pretty grim. Or, all the various things about like the compromises being made, the rowing, all the fucking raccoon and all that. But I think that Eizouken primarily is a comedy. But it's a comedy with immense amount of respect for its actual subject matter, rather than being against it'll poke fun at it, but it will never take away from it. It'll actually make you like it more than when you started. And I think that's what's important to recognize about this work here, is that there is so much potential for it. And I say potential, not that it would make it better, but rather you just simply could act on it to take this material in a much different direction in terms of its tone. making sort of like a deep character drama where there is a lot of infighting and bitterness, and it is all very personal about class conflict, etc. But the reason that you and I are not a fan of that, and we don't want that to happen, is because that's contrary to the very opening of the show if we've seen it as presented. But if it was like that from the beginning, I reckon you and I would probably be okay with it, although we'd probably like this version more. So I think this show is hitting a real nice balance insofar as you say, they are conflicting over their artistic choices, but they're not ever making it personal. And that, again, is to the show's credit. It wants, to celebrate animation and the creative process, but it isn't willing to, completely ignore the reality of time, ambition overshadowing actual ability or capacity, or even that you will butt heads with other people on what you want to do. And I think that is against the show's credit that it does that. I think it would actually be in disservice if it never addressed that, if they just simply sailed through, the creative process and maybe saw the time difficulty and all that, but never actually had differences of opinion. Because I think sometimes in differences of opinion, you actually end up making something better as a result of having those differences with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. And it allows the characters to shine a little bit and get... I don't think development's the right word, but just allows for characterization. You get to see through their differences of opinion in the art, a little bit more of kind of who they are, which is always just really good. Oh man. So okay,
you had a criticism at some point, did you not?
Well, I did, but first I was going to ask you.
Go on.
So is the show a comedy?
Well, it's making me laugh more than most comedies I've seen lately.
Truly, I mean, it is very. It just definitely has funny moments. I guess so. Yeah. Well, I mean,
it's not strictly a comedy just in pure terms, though. As I say, it's a which is it will have a good laugh at you, and it'll the subject matters like terminology and stuff to make a couple of jokes and all that, or even just have a laugh at the working practice on it. But it never is disrespectful of it, whereas some comedy can be.
Oh, totally. It's very loving, as you say, and respectful. But I did not know that a necessary component of a roast was that respect. I thought a roast was just like we're just gonna crush this person, and they have to be okay with it because they're honored.
There is a core of respect.
Sure. Okay. I don't. Do you think it's lampooning or roasting the industry, or just sort of I don't know. It doesn't feel as focused on that.
I think. We haven't really got to the industry.
Well, not the industry like the corporate, but the process of making an anime.
I think that for me, it's the humor for me is often quite screwball.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that a lot of it is also hey, look at these characters who get involved in these fantastic creative worlds, and then something. Oh God, it's raining. Process how it can occasionally cause you to forget what you're doing, get sidetracked, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then we had the bureaucracy element, and we also had the whole riot police thing, which I'm going to let you in on a thought of mine now. I don't think that actually is real. I don't think the riot police were actually there.
The security club?
I mean, come on, do you really think that there's actually a guy with a rocket launcher there?
Yes.
But we are dealing with a show. But we're dealing with a show in that very same episode, not minutes later, blends a fictional world with the real one, quote unquote.
This is a great what is happening there?
Well,
phenomenologically, what the fuck is going on?
Well, I think I do know what's happening there, which I suppose that's my next talking point. Although I think you were about to lead into one. Weren't you?
No. Let's. I want to save it for the end. Let's talk about all the rest of the stuff.
What if I told you, although this is an ensemble cast, I think Asakusa was the main character?
I think that's correct.
And here's the reason I say this. First off, all of the stuff that is not strictly about the anime that they're making itself, but rather the creative process is through Asakusa's worldview.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I actually didn't get to say that I don't think it's a roast because I don't think that's the core of the show.
What, sorry? You broke up.
So I don't think that you could call the show a roast for me, because that's not the core of what it's trying to do. I think it's more of like a tribute.
That could also be true. Yeah, it depends on what degree you want.
It's just like an exploration and a tribute and a kind
loving
of loving. Homage is not the right word, because it's not sort of directly referencing anything in particular, but yeah, I think that the love and the joy are the primary components, and the journey, the way like that they are communicating all this, so that, as you pointed out before, it won't be like this dry thing, is like to have these really funny characters and like to show, like, to have them do impossible things.
Okay, maybe tribute is the better word for it then, perhaps. Rather.
But anyway, I thought we had moved on and I hadn't actually said that. But now, please, yes, let's give Asakusa, main character.
Here's
totally
why.
Agree. Mm-hmm.
Here's why, because like all of the like explanations of all like the techniques stuff, they are being conducted inside the greatest world, which is hers. It's her design. Kanamori herself is not an artist really, at least not from what we see, and Mizuzaki is a very character focused person, which ties in with her backstory, as I mentioned in previous podcasts. But let's now go to the actual presentation. Asuku says, all right, everyone, let's get ready. We can do this. But you'll note that Kanamori is already walking around, because Kanamori is confidence personified. And Mizuzaki, she herself, does modeling. She does adverts. She herself is not really concerned about being the public eye. But how many times have we seen this show's run thus far? Asukusa is nervous about approaching people. I don't want to go in here and ask for the anime club to be made, because I'm nervous about that. I don't want to, go to the art club, etc., etc. So here's my thinking, right? The budget meeting is happening. Don't get me wrong, and I also think maybe possibly the carbohydrate amoeba guys.
Same thing, yeah.
The same thing, yeah, basically. Yeah. I don't think maybe they're actually presenting that, but what I think is happening here is that that's going on, but all of the security and riot police and stuff is Asakusa's anxieties as she's imagining. She's letting the world blend, her imagination blend into the real world.
It's very Millennium Actress by Satoshi Kon in some ways, if that's the way we're going to look at it.
I mean, again, can't possibly be a guy of a rocket. I don't believe that. I don't believe there's literally... And I don't believe that... I mean, the security club is a kill club, as we discussed. But I don't think that's what they're going for.
Yeah, and I mean, would students really be throwing shit at these other kids?
No, I don't think they would. Because bear in mind, we do get a scenes later of just all them sat down. They're clearly not going into, I don't know, a Slipknot mosh pit. Sorry. Slipknot mosh pit. Yeah. Listening to Speak Oot, Right. They're not doing that. But that, I think, is key, that it's meant to be, and her anxieties portrayed out there. Look at that audience, they're baying at the mouth, they're frothing at the mouths, and they're going to be very, very unpleasant and unwelcoming to what we're doing. And she's trying to psych herself up for it. And that's why I love her speech there, because it is her overcoming her past the bureaucracy. I mean, Kanamori, like I say, her fighting fire with fire against that, great, all well and good, but they would get nowhere. We get nowhere fast. And then
they would.
Of course, we see the actual film. And what a more appropriate moment for her success than the tank driving straight through the front set of desks where the student count, the budget committee is. They're not physically there, of course, or rather the tank stop is driving them over. But the tank is her thing. It's the one thing that I would identify over more than anything else we've seen thus far. I mean, as much as I said, that Mizuzaki created that character with the machete to represent her fighting back,
Yeah.
That tank bowling over that committee there, it's a symbol of Asukusa's triumph. And I say, that's why I think she's the main character, because she's getting, all the framing ability for all the things that they're discussing. She's the one creating the world, they're living inside of it. And I loved how that her anxieties, were represented, but then completely demolished by the product that she made.
Yeah. I think that the line between the real world and the greatest world, I don't think we're supposed to, at least up to this point, again, my feelings could change, but I don't feel like we're supposed to like scientifically figure it out,
delineate. Yeah, we know. Yeah.
Or like what's going on, because where is it, right? There's stuff in earlier episodes like that we could point out, like them flying around in different machines, and then Asakusa falls from the catwalk or whatever because of bad railing. We could pretty much look at that and surmise that they were pretending. But then, like, this episode really does a lot of cool things to make those borders pretty ambiguous. And, like, is this Asakusa's world? Like, how much of it is, like, impinging on the real world? Because, like, in the chat, specifically about the clubs, the chat is divided whether or not they think the Carb Club and the Security Club are real. I think you could make a fun little case about, like, maybe arguing, like, when does the sound drop out? Because a couple different points in the conversation around when Asakusa is speaking, the sound of everything, of all the riot people and the students, drops out. But there are students there, so naturally they'd be making some sound. And then there's the whole, like, boy seeing a bullet casing. What's going on there? Do you remember at the end when they say, like, oh, is this one of those, like, 4D theaters where you could feel the wind? Where did that come from? This is other people from the Asakusa making that up.
I mean, we also see, like, the full theater and the
right, the floor. Shots. Yeah. Is that real? Surely a school doesn't have this, right?
But I'm going to then throw this out, right? Because this is something else I wanted to talk about. But, like, in previous podcasts, you and I have discussed, like, the idea of selling something to an audience. Like, how do you sell something conceptually in a show to both the characters in the show and to us, the audience? Because we're obviously a discrete group of people from the actual people living inside the show. Trust me, this is true. We're not living in the Truman Show. I don't think. Maybe.
Not
possibly.
Whatever.
So what I find really fascinating about this is we actually have a reverse case here. Like, when I spoke, for example, about Somali and the foreign parallel thing, where Somali's, like, you know, getting on board with the crazy world, and then we're, you know, getting drawn in. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here. And then we're getting drawn in with her enthusiasm parallel, which I think is great. But what we have here is the reverse, because we're already on board with all of these characters. We've been watching them behind the scenes. We've been privy to all of their production processes, even in montage and such. And now we're seeing, like, you know, them putting the products out to characters inside the show itself and having to prove it to them. And this is, again, where Eizouken shines, because in the hands of lesser creators, you know what they would have done? They'd have played the film, we'd have seen it, we would have never have cut back and forth to the audience, and then run straight over to the end of it, and they all stand up and start clapping.
Yeah, but this show is so much about, like,
and
the people watching the show.
So that all isn't, like, that casing, for example, that's being expended, all the shells they're not real, but they're the show selling to those characters, like, you know, the efficacy of that work through its own, like, you know, blending of, like, of the other world and such. It's great.
But are they real? But are they
No,
real?
they're not. No, it's just, I mean, come on. In the first episode, we saw Asakusa go flying into the you know, monitor.
Oh, I know.
That's the same. This is an expansion of that idea of immersing. Feel it. It's selling, like we've been told how all these techniques pull this stuff off, and now it's telling us.
But I've been,
you know,
so the monitor swallowing our main character is a very apt metaphor for something happening. It is just a metaphor of her being consumed. But, like, a kid looking over and having to rub his eyes to see, is this a bullet casing or a garbage can? I mean, that's not really, I don't know if that's like at least it's not clear to me that it's a metaphor for anything. And when have you done that in a movie? You know what I mean?
Well, this is the show in self-indulgent exaggeration. Again, this is how good this thing is, that they can feel it. I mean, if you've ever been to an IMAX theater, they even mentioned Like, they like sell like the sound effects and all that, like in that pre-screened like, demo of like, here's the 4D sound, etc. Now that's obviously not what they have here. It is just a school fair. But what I'm saying is that this show is going above and beyond simply having that scene that I can see done elsewhere of applause, to actually getting across to us visually what the audience is feeling, that they're so immersed in it by having these events play out like they do, where you see the, bullets flying over the head or the papers flying over.
Yeah. Spuck, I'm also wondering if this is a magical realist show or not, right? I mean, this got me wondering. But, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with you, like, kind of the liberties it's taking depicting, like, emotional states in this way. Like, and now, as I talk about it out loud, like, I can see that the wind and the bullet casing and everything is maybe not as like a one-to-one like clear cliche metaphor for what they're trying to do, but it is a depiction of the emotional state of getting absorbed into, like you said, the art. And so that's really cool. I get it. I guess like I hope it keeps happening, and I hope it keeps getting more ambiguous. Like, I hope, like, we have these theories, and then they just throw a wrench in them and be like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. It's impinged on reality in this other crazy way that you can't write off as a metaphor. You know what I mean? I would love that. I think that would be super rad.
I mean, think of it this way, right? Like, we start that whole budget presentation with Asku's imagination work against, as I interpret it, having the security club, having the guy with the rocket launcher, herself psyching herself up. And then look at how it U-turns to where her imagination has created something that people love.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
It's good shit. It.
And, by the way, if you also want to know how well this show understands, while everyone's watching, talking about it after the fact, every single, like person's like having like, oh my God, that was great. Our team are already talking about how they thought some of it was wrong or bad, and I've done that about everything I've ever created in my entire life.
But they're not down.
Podcast I've done, but they're not down on it.
Exactly.
No, and this is before, by the way, something that's key to know. This is before they even know they've been approved. They are still thinking about what they want to do next, even before knowing that they have that green stamp. And that's great. That again is an affirmation that it's not about getting the money, necessarily the key thing, but more that you're just passionate about it. And I love it.
Yeah, that was super cool. Gosh, I love that at the end. Yeah, how they're so driven, but not even driven in like a shitty, like, corporate, like, gotta make sales so I can get promoted, like, and get a fucking better sedan and a green lawn.
Kanamori
would
drive sedan. She's too cool.
But it's like they are at this point, even Kanamori is just like feeling the passion. They're just so passionate about wanting to make more art. It's just pure. This is so good. This is so sweet and great. I love it so much.
I love it too. And as I say, like, what I find really neat about this show is I could have where all 12 episodes are then working up to just that 5-minute thing that we see in episode 4. But no, the show's better than that. We get the build-up to that, and that was tough. It makes it clear. And they've succeeded. They get their tribe. We're all on board. I love it. And now the real game begins. This is where we go to the next level. This is where we go up from difficulty. We're not on medium anymore. We're on hard mode now.
Medium.
And the thing about hard mode though is that in the long games, it is harder, but you get greater rewards from it. I can't wait to see what happens next. I really, really hope that this season ends on them getting their actual workout. Maybe first episode completed, first full episode with voice acts and everything.
That would be.
And I want to have the same kind of feeling I had at the end of this one, where I was just elated to see that being pulled off, the joy of them creating this thing, and seeing it all in full, and seeing everyone else get on board of it, and seeing that triumph. Asku's in particular, oh, you know what? I overcame my anxiety, and that was good enough on its own. Then look at what I made, and it's fucking brilliant.
God, so happy for her. So happy for my little
great
frog girl with the camo
with the
hat.
gremlin, the anime gremlin. All right, do we have anything else to add, Doc?
Yeah, I've got 2 more points, but
Hit it.
would you? So I have to step away for 2 seconds. Do you want to take a full on break, or do you want to keep the windows up and you talk to the people while I step away?
I will take a break as well,
All right.
very briefly. We'll be
Yes.
back momentarily, folks.
We've returned. Thanks for waiting, everybody. So, my final 2 points. Um, Firstly, this is more of a minor one, I think, but like I'm actually really kind of glad that they gave Mizusaki the moment she got during the montage where she's on the train, band-aiding her fingers and greets a fan.
Oh, you're right. Yes, yes.
And then at home in her pajamas, she's like flipping animation pages, trying to get them right, has her fingers bandaged up still. And she has that moment where she looks at herself in the mirror and she kind of stares at herself for a sec. And what I believe is going on is like she sees that her eyebrows have grown out a little bit. And normally at like there's some different longer hairs is what I think. What I took from the scene. And that combined with her like soft like model hands covered in bandages with ink on them, she just sort of sees herself like, wow, like I'm really doing this. And
I'm who I want to be.
I'm like
hey,
yeah,
my hands are got plasters on them and cuts and all that, but I'm okay with that. I'm doing what I want to do.
and I just like keep doing the work and not stop and like pluck her eyebrows or whatever, to get like model ready. Like she's like, screw it, man. Like this is what I will prioritize what I love to do. And like that is the flip side to the possible downside of her character that, again, has not been touched on. This is totally speculative and theoretical, but the whole, like, you know, I always give my way because I'm a rich girl and I don't know what compromise is. Actually, you know, a lot of times those kind of characters are depicted as characters that don't want to work hard, but she's busting her ass. You know what I mean? She's working very, very hard for the group. Clearly super invested in it, and I really like that.
Yeah, I again think, like, you know, it's nice that the show doesn't forget these elements. I mean, it has been noted by that, hey, we haven't seen her parents yet, but there's still time for that. I'm okay at the moment with the MIBs and that overall, like, you know, threat of them intervening being put to the background, because being honest, like, it is amusing to see it that way. And also, again, it helps point out that, you know, class in itself can be a burden, even if you are wealthy, which is fine, without belaboring it, because that's Eizouken's strength, which is its subtlety. But I also think that it's also to the show's benefit that it sticks with the grounded or relatively grounded issues that it has covered thus far, which is time and, you know, compromise and resources, rather than it simply being all in on, we keep getting interrupted by MIBs who keep stealing our cuts, you know, and setting them on fire. Zeus says, I was actually thinking the opposite. My impression of that scene is that it's hinting she's actually going to have to choose, that if she continues this anime thing, it will harm her modeling career.
I don't think that's at odds with what I was saying. I think that's very well possible. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, she's clearly neglecting it. You know what I mean? Because she's not neglecting it in terms of, like, blowing off jobs, but, you know, she's got the eyebrows thing and she's got the cuts on her fingers are sore. Like, that seems at odds with the way a model would want to be keeping herself. So I agree. I mean, I think I pretty much saw it the way you saw it, although I didn't sort of think in her head she's realizes that she's at a crossroads. I think it was more of a, oh my gosh, I'm not used to seeing myself this way. Like, I have been working at being a model for so long. Like,
I have been many things, but how often have I been me?
Exactly.
Kind of
yeah. And it's
boom!
Like,
I love it.
Now I'm working on it. You know.
I've looked in the mirror to get motivated a bunch of times, but that's build myself up to buying the hair restorative, you know, gel I've been promising myself all this time. Clearly, I've not looked at it long enough.
I could be wrong about the whole eyebrow thing, or eyelashes, or whatever it is. But to me, they just seem longer in that shot. What's that?
My eyebrows need looking at. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well.
Still got a scar on one of them where I got bottled one steps.
Oh no! What happened?
That was when I was 18. I got hit by a flying.
Whoa.
That was quite painful. Don't let that happen to you, folks. Don't be the victim of bad circumstance where you get hit over the head with a ball.
Yeah, but please avoid that if you can. Okay. Here's the last card I have in the deck. And I'll try my best. I know I tend to be verbose and circuitous, but I'll try not to do that. Try to just get the point out there. I think it's at least worth having the conversation that Eizouken...
You said that with such a fatherly tone, by the way. you know you're gonna... I think it's at least worth having the conversation.
That this episode could be a little irresponsible.
Ooh, go on. Go on. My interest is piqued.
Because this episode, more than any other, shows the bodily sacrifice that has to be made, that animators do make on a daily basis. You know, like,
yes.
Asakusa says, like, I was pretending to be a pro sleeping under my desk, jokey joke, like, you know, worked on everything all night, slept in the studio, wake up to do it some more. You know, we got people with bruised, hurt fingers and all that sort of thing, and doing things that certainly adults shouldn't be doing to their bodies. Definitely kids shouldn't be doing to their bodies in terms of pulling these all-nighters. And
Kanamori, by the way, can I just note, like, is awake at the same time as Kuzma is completely unfazed.
I know, and she's totally fine.
She's just such a stallion. Oh, and also, can I just give, by the way, like, yeah, she is very stern, but she's the one going out to the convenience store in the middle of the night, paying with her own money to get the supplies for them, which is just, I love it. Like she's not just completely like, you know, pure managerial like mastermind. She actually does have a little bit of a heart.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
oh yeah, she
completely.
cares. She absolutely cares, and
Totally.
she's just great.
It's
I mean,
it's
I'm
so
gonna be hard
good.
pressed to find a character I like more this year. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck with the anime craze. You've got a fucking uphill climb.
She's like,
anyway.
Well, she's used to being up at this hour. This is when she collects from all the local shops the protection money.
Oh God, I know I pay up. Jesus Christ.
Okay, but yeah, it shows these horrible conditions, like the things that they have to put themselves through, and then at the end, they are rewarded. They are given the green stamp of approval. It's all smiles. Everyone loves their work. And it sort of leaves you, I think, with the message of this was all worth it. And I don't think it is. I think art, you love art and you put everything you have into it. But I don't think it's worth destroying yourself. You know what I mean?
Well, okay. First off, I can't disagree with your point in principle, because I do agree. It would be irresponsible if this show, and I don't think it is right now, but I'll explain what I say, but I would, like, if one all said and done, when you and I get to episode 12, you know, we talk about and we look back with the benefit of hindsight, will we then think, yes, this was irresponsible? It was too rose-tinted. It was too optimistic. It wasn't too, you know, honest. Whereas I think it's pretty much in the right balance right now. But I would agree with you. I am willing to cut it the benefit of the doubt, though, for one reason, which is that what they're currently doing is very much smaller in scale than what regular shows are. This particular slice of time, these 4 episodes we've seen, is them doing a much, much smaller project than what we would see, like, you know, a full episode be for a proper anime house.
But it's meant to be a direct analog to making anime, right?
Well, yes, but this is where I think this show could now lead into that. Now that they've got a budget and they're going to expand to a full-blown episode, this is where it could start ramping up that element.
I mean, I guess there's things that they could do where if they sort of show this and how shitty it was, and I think that they could have done more to lean into how shitty it was than romanticize. I feel like someone, I don't know if it hit this note for me, but I think it will be fair if someone came away from the show thinking that it romanticized the notion of all-nighters, you know, pulling all-nighters to do your anime project. But they could do this thing where with the money that they get, they somehow find a way around killing themselves. And I think this whole, like, Yuki brings up, like, you know, Kanamori saying they've got youth on their side, so it's worth giving it a chance. Like, you know, I mean, I agree giving it a chance, for sure, but again, like, I think, like, all I hear in that is, like, you know, well, we got some bodies to use up. They have a lot of vitality, so we need to squeeze it out of them.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Doc. I'm not going to disagree with your point on principle, but I'm going to reserve judgment until the show's done. If it does, as you say, like, not lean, like, this is, as I say, this is the point now where, because they have that, like, done the first step, this is where the things step up. Everything gets more difficult, but more rewarding as a result. But then it needs to also be more honest about that difficulty. So I would, for example, expect to see in future episodes, if they are doing, like, an all-nighter or multiple all-nighters on an extended and, like, full 25-minute episode, that does start having an effect. Like, Asuku's drawing starts to suffer, for example. I mean, in fact, imagine this, if you will. Imagine, like, Asuku's is on her 3rd all-nighter, and she's explaining a new animation technique to the others, and the greatest world that we see starts falling apart or becomes less defined because she can't have the mental energy to explain in such a way that she normally would. That would be pretty neat, actually, in my opinion.
Oh, wow, that would be cool. That would be really cool.
See, it's like I keep saying, you take a problem and you turn it into a
and you
strength.
could, yes, exactly. Like, there's things they could do. I'm not, at no point am I saying that this ruins the show or anything like that. So to address Yuki's point, I mean, like, Kanamori does hold the whole 24/7 thing over her head as a threat. As a clearly an unrealistic one, I don't think they would ever do that, like work all the time. But still, there's crunch in the show. You know what I mean? And crunch is always bad, no matter.
I mean,
how
maybe Katamori was setting up for a Ramones musical. 24 hours to go. I wanna be sedated.
Yeah,
and that would be punk.
It would be, and I know that they are doing this. Clearly, the idea is to tap into what animators in Japan and possibly elsewhere, but I'm just not familiar, go through on a regular basis with their projects. And I totally respect that. Like, I get that that's what they're going for, and I think it's admirable to address that. But I think if you're going to do that, I think then, again, leaving the audience able to come away with the message of, well, it was all worth it in the end, I think is a bit of a... That leaves me with a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I would almost rather them go full fantasy and have zero problem world if they're going to do that, because like
would that not have to? I mean, I would argue that would then leave my mouth.
Oh, then it would be less dangerous. It would be less romantic. It will be less dangerous.
But the problem is
dangerous is not the right word, but like
being lost in fantasy though can itself like cause you to turn a blind eye to your own fatigue as it is anyway.
But then again, but I think if it was a pure fantastical puff piece, it's easy for almost anyone to burst that bubble and say, "Oh, this is not really how it is." Again, imagine if you saw like a show about being a data analyst and it was all happy, fun. I mean,
man,
it would not be like no one like would be under any illusions that it was really like that. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm under no fucking illusions right now.
Yeah. God. So like,
don't ever ask me how the sausage is made at my work. By the way, Jesus Christ. But anyway, no, I again will stick with my guns on this one. Say I'm okay with it now, but let's go. I tell you what, Doc. Let's make a point of revisiting this at the end of the show.
Oh, we definitely will. I
feel we should.
We definitely will, because if it's it's almost like if you were to make a documentary about any job or anything, it would be really easy for someone to tell your documentary was bullshit if it was only fluffy, duffy pieces, right? And only
man, can you imagine Eizouken done by Pragi?
Right. Prager, god damn it. But
I'm so sorry for that.
You should be very sorry. You should be canceled. But if you show a little bit of like hard stuff without revealing too much,
the thing is though,
it becomes way more plausible. And I think again, they are showing like Asakusa up till 4 a.m. and everything, and I just don't think it comes across as, I mean, it's more funny than anything, and it's more like, you know, well, this is just what we got to do to make our dream come true, but it's not. It shouldn't be. I mean,
I can't really process. I've been on podcasts. You remember we did Sherlock at 4 a.m?
Yeah.
Man, that was a fever dream.
Fucking.
And when I did Angel's Egg when I was barely alive.
When I stayed up until almost 5 a.m. doing the Mob Psycho pod with Anime is Lit and Mark from Ono Anime.
we you and me, Doc, we could both say till the cows come home. Mm-hmm. You know, do as we say, not as we do. And much the same as this anime should, but we're hypocrites otherwise. But yeah, let's see what happens. But I don't disagree with your point in principle. Mm-hmm. Just this point in time, not quite feeling the same way. Well, which is unusual because normally I'm the one to come down on irresponsible shit.
Sure.
I always go.
and I don't want to be misconstrued as this is not me saying that they shouldn't show the realities of crunch.
Are you hammering in your no fun allowed big sledgehammer?
I don't know what you mean.
Like no fun allowed? You're just putting a sign outside?
No. That's not what I'm doing.
No fun allowed.
In fact, I wish it would be all fun.
Yes.
no, I'm not saying, oh, they shouldn't show Asakusa up till 4 a.m. They just shouldn't. So I think, yes, like, do that. I think that's so admirable. I like that. But then for it to all, what it all came to in the end was like, again, we did it. It was all worth it. And this doesn't quite sit right with me. But again, I think there's so much going for the show. It's a tremendous show. Like, by no means does it like ruin the episode even or the show or anything like that. It certainly came to me and perhaps that's the dad in me surfacing. Thinking about the well-being of these children.
But that's entirely valid perspective in your own right. Like something I wouldn't consider not being a father myself. So no, I can understand where you're coming from with that one. I mean, let's say your kids get older, although they will get older. But like,
let's say aging happens.
They just they just stop aging. But let's say they get to Asukusa's age and they start the same thing. You probably would be furious if you found out that they've been doing it all night, wouldn't they? Even if they were doing animation. You would be probably pretty livid about that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would be.
You'd be like, right, I think you're fucking leaving the house at any time, like from dusk till dawn, ever again.
I can't believe 21. I can't believe people in the chat are like siding with like the fucking corporate bullies who want to like push artists and game devs to work ridiculous hours and being like, it's just hard. Like, of course hard work being rewarded is a very simple concept. Like that's not what this is, man. Like, yes, like they have been working very, very hard.
It's at what price?
Exactly. Like, I mean, fucking, like, I mean, you heard the crazy stories about Rockstar and Red Dead 2 and always Rockstar, like people working like 10 and 12-hour days. And the idea that the world we live in shouldn't be like, well, guess what? This game got a 9 out of 10 on IGN, so they did it. It's worth it. Like, fuck that. Like, people should not be like it shouldn't be shown as like a all's well that ends well. Like, you fucking took 5 years off your life on this project, but you didn't
get to see a family for like days on end.
You don't get to have a normal school life, like hanging out with your boyfriend or going to dances or whatever because you were making anime. I mean, it sounds cooler to us because we're fucking nerds, but but I don't know, Cesar. Of course I didn't want the student council to say it's terrible, but like I don't know what the alternative version of it would be. I'm just telling you my how I responded to it. Like what it presented to me was girls working, pulling an all-nighter. And I guess like pulling one all-nighter is different from like a culture of it, you know what I mean? And doing it continually. But I mean, they did work long into the night on it. But it presented that. It presented a girl sleeping overnight at school. Well, 2 of them actually, I think. And then to get to the finish line, and with no criticism of that behavior, of that state of things. And of course, like you can be like, oh, it's a school deadline, this is a school project, but this is an analogy to the anime industry. And the anime industry is like, making people do this sort of thing all the time on an episode per episode basis, weekly.
Well, it's like, I'll just finish off my thoughts on that by saying 2 things. First off, to reiterate, wait and see. I will be on board with your point if it turns out that it's not like, given its due credence. And secondly, it could be worse. They could be sneaking out at night to take part in the Holy Grail War.
Right.
I mean, come on. Anime has students sneak out at night to do all sorts of stupid shit all the time. At least oh man, in fact, come to think of it, I was trying to imagine what Kana Mori would be like in the Holy Grail War. She'd win easily. It wouldn't even be a contest.
So like, oh yeah, and I don't know. There's a lot of, I mean, I certainly don't want the tone of the show to change. I'm just telling you that, like,
I think
what
Doc,
I got from it.
Well, Doc, like, maybe that has to happen in order to have that be a thing. In which case, would it, are you ready for the truth bomb that is maybe you might need to compromise?
Oh, the C word.
Yes! Yes!
The C word.
All right, that's it. I'm going home. Well, I already am home. Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. I think. Do you have anything else to add, Doc? Because I think we're all talked out now, aren't we? Are we good?
Next time, Morgana should stop them all and say, "Go back to bed." Can't be running around the city at this hour.
Oh my God. I suppose in that case I should have a look at the polls for everyone. Let's go see what we got.
Oh man, there's this whole thing of working culture, because I don't know if Felix is responding to someone else or to me when he says there's always a time limit, even if it's longer. If you relax too much, you end up back at square one to get everything done in the end. I mean, I think it just, you shouldn't build your entire workflow and working life around
4 hours sleep.
Yeah, and around well, let me fuck around until the last week or two of a project. There shouldn't just be one deadline at the end. There should be many deadlines along the way, and you should keep yourself on a reasonable schedule all the way through. And again, I know that's not the reality. I know it's not, but I also know that crunch and all-nighters and a culture of putting work before health is bad and unhealthy.
It's true. Well, let's see what shakes out with the show anyway. All right, so let's go and recap the polls. We're not speak, by the way, but I will throw that out there that if you would like to get on board with asking us questions about shows we cover week on week, for example, about, say, Eizouken or even Jula Richard, or even anything else we might be doing, if you get yourself onto our Patreon, get yourself in for $3 or more per month, you'll get yourself access to our Discord where you can ask us these questions. You can in turn also get yourself access to early content, both our Jula Richard stuff for the right price, and also audio essays, all sorts of great stuff. Do check it out. But we'll come back to that later when we get through the polls.
Also, so I was joking about chat siding with corporate bullies. I just wanted to make that clear. That I was totally kidding.
Don't make me pull up the poll again where
Are you corporate bullies? Yes or no?
Oh man! All right.
Oh so my God! Please don't go a full week without sleep. That is. Don't do that, man.
The longest I've ever stayed awake was 30 hours, and I felt like my soul was leaving my body. Yes. I felt dislocated, spiritually.
Death warmed over.
I mean, that was also jet lag fueled as well. It was unpleasant. Don't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know, Felix, how you did that. I will never know. I mean, are you Bear Grylls? Are you some sort of survival expert? Is that it?
Are you?
Were you wandering the wastes, man? Is that why you couldn't?
Please,
because you could be mauled by a giant tiger or some shit. What was the reason for this? There's no good reason. That's why I have to make shit up like this. That's my greatest will.
Please make poll number 6. Are you Bear Grylls? Yes or no?
Oh, fucking hell.
Oh, no, this is Cesar's getting into the Kato shit. You remember?
That
people sleep for you or whatever. You were always sleeping.
That's a sideways bird given what I watched before doing this stream, which was Babylon's finale. Ooh, fuck's sake. Right, okay, moving on before I get mad. There'll be a time for me to get mad, but now is not it, because I like this show. So, Eizouken episode 4, poll number 1. Have you ever had a face like Asukusa's after she wakes up and comes out from under the desk? I mean, we had to ask this. And I know that that's bitter for you to swallow, Dog, given what you just discussed, that we're going to make light of it.
No, it's fine. I'm good with it.
Joking.
No, I'm good with the.
It just feels like an appropriate segue.
No, yes, it's good. I've made this face. Yes.
50% say every day ending in Y.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that.
Yep, that's all the days, if I'm not mistaken.
30% say it's happened for sure, and 20% say sleep is for the weak. So there we go. That's going to reveal some unfortunate habits. Let's see. Episode 4, poll number 2. Have you ever done a group project that evokes the same kind of frustrations and collective decision-making process and pragmatism shown in this episode? So if you've basically related to what's happened, 60% say yes, 40% say no. I mean, to be fair, I think the reason a lot of people might say no is because everyone's on board in this group. At university, you always had that one fucker, that one motherfucker. He's just there like this, just leaning back, just looking up. And he reaches for his phone, and you're trying to get his attention. And he's just like, wait just a sec. Okay, continue. There's always that one prick. That one fucking prick. Not bitter, promise. Anyway, episode 4, poll number 3. Do you feel the show does a good job of educating the audience on various methods and techniques of animation, or at the very least works to help get people thinking about it?
I think we've had this poll before.
Well, we're having it again, damn it. I don't see that as a problem. I learned from this show. Like, if ever someone criticized, you say, I don't see it as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, 100% say yes. Everyone's on board with this show being educational in that kind of way. Episode 4, poll number 4. If you were the budget committee, would you have approved the carbohydrate amoeba project?
Amoeba, I forgot.
Yeah, and thus far, 67%, 2/3 say carbs for all. And 33% say, oh, no. And then finally, because you asked for it, so I was putting the poll up, episode 4, poll number 5, is ramen and rice an acceptable nutritional combination? 0% say absolutely, and 100% say no, it's criminal. I feel like, you're doing God's work there, everyone. Stay strong.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you everyone who's taking behind the polls. They will be so do feel free to check them out on our Twitter at Warui Deshou, especially if you're listening to this later on.
The robot transformation, so...
I mean, come on, Scissor. That's how I always move.
Auto-tweet.
Yeah, I exist in a kind of like, Crimson state where I just teleport to places and then fill in like the blanks between.
Mm-hmm.
It works, I save on our podcast animation.
So before I sign off, last thing again because I can't leave it alone.
Oh boy.
So again, like I said at the very top of the show, I'm not even sure if I fully come down on the side of that I've been pushing for here at the end of the show about crunch and stuff. But I think it's best to think about that scene not as a single incident. Because if you're just talking about some girl staying up all night to work on a science project,
as a one-off,
very common. Like not a thing, not a sort of culture of toxicity and unhealth. But this is a show about anime that is saying things about the industry. This is not meant to be, I think, here's just a one-off thing for fun. This is something that is like, it's laying out this situation that and showing it as the reality for people's life. Like that is their life that they live every day. Mm-hmm. And so I think to think about it in those terms and then just be like, well, should the show have done more to make that seem like a less romantic thing, something that is I don't want to say not rewarded, but like it's somehow shown as the
justified
destructive thing that it is, because I don't think there is any justification for doing that.
Oh, sorry, I misheard, but no, you're right.
But that's a good word. I'm glad you used that word, because I think that you should go out of your way to demonstrate that like this is not justifiable way to live, a very unhealthy way to
it's when it becomes routine. That's the problem.
Yeah,
I would agree.
And the show is not showing it as a routine, but like
that there's the possibility it could become.
Well, fuck. Like for a minute, what's shown in the show? Like this moment is an analogy. It's showing you what that is a reality for everyone, like in that industry on a regular basis for animators. I mean, not everyone, because you have places like Kyoto Animation that actually have a reputation for really caring about the health of their staff. But like for many studios, that is the reality. And so,
Indeed,
should the show have done more to push back on that and say, like, this is not the world we want? Maybe it will do in the future, like, but yes, now we can leave the topic.
That's my hope.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, I'll wrap up first then, with my thoughts on this episode. I loved every second of it. I love that it ended the way it did, with the success that they actually pulled it off. Doc's point is valid. I'm not feeling it personally right now, though, but I'm going to keep mind on it as the show progresses and come back to this later. It was wonderfully witty throughout. I learned things. I felt challenged again, like, to keep an eye out for things that the show was not telling me about. And I think it handled the level of conflict very well. Like, it got the right amount. It wasn't dour or depressing. Mm-hmm. It's not like we were watching a version of this where they were all aged up and one of them turns like an alcoholic or something because they can't cope. That kind of thing, or is neglecting their family. That's the kind of story this could have been in different hands. Oh. But it has its tone perfectly in balance. Every single part of this episode was great. I loved how it started. I loved how it ended. So I have no hesitation in offering it 5 out of 5 impromptu whitewater rafting on a couch out of 5.
Incredible. I love this episode a lot. I think this might have been my favorite since the premiere. And I don't. You know what? No, I'm gonna give it the full 5 because
I was gonna say I thought you were gonna still less because of the thing, but
no, I think it's a super strong episode. A really, really good episode. I'm gonna give it 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5 auto in-betweens.
5 out of 5 keyframes.
Yep, there you go. 5 out of 5 rocket launchers. 5 out of 5 possibly fictional rocket launcher.
5 out of 5 Kanamori's foot on a door frame to prove how bad. That's how you walk into a saloon. You know I'm right.
It is. It totally 5 get in the PC room out of 5. So I think that's going to do it for Stream of Thought.
Oh, no, Felix. 5 out of 5 days without sleep.
Felix.
Oh,
you poor man. I'm so sorry.
5 out of 5 servings of rice and noodles.
5 amoebas.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's wrap it up then.
Yep. Shadon, how do people hook up with you on Twitter?
Well, you talk to me nicely and sweetly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Pay for dinner first.
Yeah, this is coming.
Yeah. Oh, come on. You can't say to hit me up or anything like about me leaving. No, I kid. You can, of course, find me at Shadon1010 on Twitter. I'm still waiting for @Shadon to become free. At some point, I will make it happen by hook or by crook.
Jack,
feel free to
make it happen.
Well, there's many things Jack should make happen first.
Yeah.
That's fair. But yeah, do feel free to hit me up to talk about anything and everything. Please don't do that. God damn it, Yuki.
And assume dominance.
Don't. Wow. And I thought that's certainly a kind of foreplay, I suppose. It's that kind of thing. I may be honest.
You're into it.
No, I like winning. Anyway, but yeah, feel free to talk to you all soon.
So I'm at the Subtle Doctor on Twitter. Please at me about anything. Tell me how wrong I am about anime or other topics. And yeah, I think now we're gonna sign off and we're gonna talk about Alita Battle Angel
Alita Hours
for the patrons for a few days, and then it'll be released to the public on Friday the 31st, the anniversary of the world premiere of Alita Battle Angel. So we're gonna get to chatting about that, but until next time, he's Shadon. I'm the Subtle Doctor. From Warui Deshou to all of you, embrace each other.
Keep it easy, breeze it.
Everyone. To the ends of the universe. Mwah.
Good night.